Hey, Taffy.
Packet Greaser comes
what does it
in.
mean when there's like bits, but a lot of them?
Packet Greaser comes in with a tier 1 sub. Yeah, it's not gifted or anything. Packet Greaser, you're my favorite kind of person. The type of person who comes here and spends money of their own free will for the first time. I love you. This is all for you. Hey, Taffy, you have come a long way from our work in the hole. What do we do in the hole? I mean, like, I have ideas. Packet Greaser.
Hey, man.
Is that Lauren?
Sure did.
That's not Lauren.
Hey, man.
There was a place that I used to... It's Lauren!
Are you shitting me? There's no way that's you, man.
What is going on? Did I call that? Dude, okay, chat. Lauren and I worked together when we were, I was like 16, 17, and he was a year or two younger than me. Wow, the hole. The hole was what we called the IT space beneath the school, and we worked for the school district. Lauren actually knew about computers. And so I would tag along and like, I would learn stuff. I would learn things from Lauren and from our bosses, Chris and Tom and all those guys. But yeah, man, Lauren and I, dude, the first ever like LAN party that I ever had was me and Lauren figuring out how to rig a LAN network within the like busted beat up ass computers in the hole. And so we rigged our own little network and then pulled, and this is like 1996, 97. And we rigged it all together so we could play, shit, what were we playing? Was it Quake? It was like, was it Quake or Warcraft or something like that? I can't remember what it was. That or the original Call of Duty. Or that and the original Call of Duty. First of all, really quickly, Ray T, thank you for 15 bits. Quiet Storm, thank you for 15 bits. And Chesbox, thank you for the 1,000 bits. Yeah, dude, we used to, like, Lauren and I used to, Lauren tried to get me to go into tech, and I just never really, I never felt like I got it in the way that I needed to get it, to ask people for money to do their tech work for them. But Lauren is the source of the ID 10T error. That was, anytime you guys hear me reference that on here, teachers would say, hey, my printer's not working. And we would go to the site and we'd look at it, and Lauren would get down beneath the desk and he'd show me that the plug was laying there. And he'd be like, oh man, I feel like we got a real strong ID 10T error. I mean, like, this is one of the worst I've ever seen. And the teachers would be like, well, what is that? We're like, oh, it's the worst. We see this stuff happens all the time. And if we could stop this, I think, frankly, teacher, we would be out of a job. And like, oh my God, is it serious? And we're like, yeah, it's pretty serious. Well, how long is it going to take to fix? Hold on. You've got some top-notch techs that are on the job right now. We'll go ahead and sort this out for you right away. And then all of a sudden the printer would start to work. They'd be like, oh my God, how did you fix it? And they're like, we're just that good. We're just that good. Fortunately, we've handled ID10T errors more than most working for a school district. And this one seems to have basically sorted itself out, but it was pretty hairy there for a while. Taffy's mom makes the best gumbo on the planet. Agreed. Agreed. Holy shit, man. How the fuck are you? All I know is that, like, Lauren was the person that I looked at and I was just like, this is how my life could have gone professionally, because it was him going like, I'm not gonna go to college, I'm just gonna go straight into the workforce. And he instantly went out and started accruing skills and resume fodder and to my knowledge made money. And I was like, oh, that's enviable. I went and got a theater degree. I like to play dress up. And look at me now.
Man, those are bits.
Evil only drops 90 bits and says, awesome, you found your old high school buddy. Yeah, Jesus, I still think of Lauren as a kid, and Lauren's in his mid-30s now, man. Lauren, I'm sorry, I still picture you as like a 16-year-old kid in my head. I haven't talked to this guy I haven't talked to this guy in 20 years. That's crazy. Wait, what was the, you said picnic, Finbo. What was picnic? Problem in chair, not in computer. Oh my God. Lauren is a dude. Yeah, Lauren is a dude. Loren. Yep. That's insane, man. How are you? I even lived with this guy for a hot minute. When I moved back to Boise, I moved out of my parents' place and up to Boise just because I didn't want to go home during vacation. Like on vacations, I didn't want to leave Boise anymore to go back to Jerome, Idaho, bustling metropolis of Jerome, Idaho, population 7,000. I didn't want to go back to the cow town in between semesters at Boise State, and so Lauren let me stay at his apartment in a guest room, and I worked at Red Robin. I still act like a 16-year-old, married, 3 kids, run a badass data center. I hit you up on Facebook so we can catch up. I'm glad you did, man. Like, listen, no bullshit. I will always take your money on here. Beyond that, I am super eager to also rekindle our friendship, man. I still consider you one of the best people that I've ever known. So the fact that we fell off, you know, because fucking life happens. But the fact that we fell off feels like a sin. You know what I mean? That's fucking awesome, man. That's awesome. You're one of the few people that can find me on here too, where I'm not self-conscious about the fact that you found me. This has been a crazy morning. There's been a lot of shit going on. I am absolutely befuddled that he's like, you come a long way from the work we did in the hole. And for a split second, I was just like, yo, is there any restaurant that I worked at that I called the hole? I was like, they surely would not have been happy about that. No restaurant I can think of would be happy that I called it the hole. I was like, have I ever worked anywhere called the hole? I was thinking about like low voltage cable installation. I was like, well, I mean, I climbed in some crawl spaces for that job, but I was like, wait a second. The only place I can think of was this dank fucking basement in the bottom of Central Elementary School. That was one of, dude. Okay, chat. You guys want a spooky story? All right, you get a spooky story. So Lauren and I, depending on what the gig was, right? Because we were like, you know, we would pull cable through all these new schools. We'd pull cable through all these old schools. We worked a lot of long hours on projects. I mean, like, I got buff on that job because that was back, you know, during the monitors were 50 pounds and shaped like a big brick. It was back during those days. So we worked a lot of like long nights and late projects. Scientist drops 100 bits and says, to old friends and good memories. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And Evil Only again, thank you for the 90 bits. Says, awesome, you found your old high school buddy, man. Once I get into this one, I'm not gonna, I know I'm not coming out of this story until it's done. So one night, for whatever reason, Lauren and I are down there in the hole, which is down in the basement of this elementary school in Idaho that used to be the middle school. It was a middle school for my dad. It was the high school for my grandfather. So it was the only school that had been in the city for like a really long time and in use forever. It'd been in use, I mean, I say forever, right? But forever in Idaho times, which means the building was like 70 or 80 years old. And so, one night, Lauren and I are sitting there down in the hole, which is just like this. It used to be like a converted boiler room, which they'd stripped all this shit out. It's just nasty, old, crumbly concrete walls and foundation, and a bunch of holes punched through it so that cable could come through, and we could basically set up like a dozen or 2 dozen machines, and we could ghost machines. We could try stuff out. We could update drivers. We could try to, you know, move contents for one hard drive to the next, that kind of shit. So one night we're there, it's nighttime, it's like 8 o'clock at night, and we're there by ourselves, and we have to be really careful because we have access to the security system, and the security system is motion sensor, like it's based on motion sensors. I am so stuck. The security system is based on motion sensors, and we've been told by, like, I mean, the superintendent's office is right above us, this old ass elementary school is right above us. So we're up late and we're working. We're just told, like, hey, you're gonna get in a lot of deep shit if you set off those motion sensors, so make sure to turn them off if you go take a leak. Make sure to turn them off if you leave for the night, and then turn them back on when you leave, or else you'll be in, it was basically, don't fuck with the motion sensors or you'll be in deep shit. So when we would get down there, we would bring like satchels of snacks and drinks and all that kind of stuff, or we would bring games to play or whatever we needed to do to pass the time. And we were sitting there at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night working late on something that we'd been there all day. And we're sitting there, we're talking, and upstairs in the place where all the motion sensors are active, we hear what sounds like thump, 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 like footsteps, like somebody running. And then they run down, the entire building is just basically one long hallway with schoolrooms off to each side. And we heard what sounded like fucking footsteps of somebody running from one end of the hallway to the other. And then they got down to the end of the hallway and they fucking hit like the lockers. We heard thump, 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 bam. It was like loud. It was like somebody went full sprint and hit into a fucking locker. And Lauren and I are sitting there and we're like, what was that? And so we kind of like confer with the security panel, and not a single motion sensor has gone off. So we disabled the motion sensors and went upstairs and looked around, and there was nothing. And then we went back downstairs and got all of our shit and left. And fucking turned the motion sensors back off. We're like, we're out. Done. We're done for the night. 2 grown-ass men are calling it an evening. You guys have a wonderful night. Yeah, man, I don't even know if I've ever told that story on this channel. Yeah, that night scared the shit out of me, man. Just sounded like somebody ran at a full sprint right into a wall of lockers and did it all without setting off at least a dozen motion sensors. Yeah, dude, that scared the shit out of me. That was also the same place that had bats. That was the same place that had bats, and my friend Simon in Facebook, I'll catch you. Lauren knows who I'm talking about, but I'm not using his real name because frankly, like, my best friend for most of school, but on here I call him Simon because ultimately there were some stories I was just like, I don't know if Simon wants to be sharing that.
Those are bits.
Simon used to get paid to go in with a BB gun and shoot bats out of the auditorium. Like that was like a job that he had for a little while.
The newest denizen of the cave.
Lauren and I went upstairs one time into that same corridor that we'd heard the footsteps, and this fucking bat is flying the length of the hallway, and I reached over and grabbed a broom and like managed to swat and kill it all in one karate chop motion out of the air. And Lauren turned to me and was just like, that was one of the coolest fucking things I've ever seen. I was just like, I would never be able to replicate that in a million tries. If you told me my family's life depended on it, I would never be able to do that again. He's like, I know. No, I totally agree. You would never be able to do that again. It was still fucking awesome. Now, how do we throw this thing away? Closest thing I ever had to, fuck, I'm still getting over the fact that Lauren's in this channel right now. The closest thing I've ever had to a UFO story, I was driving from Boise to Mountain Home and then Mountain Home over to Sun Valley. Between Mountain Home and Sun Valley, there's this like mountain pass that there. Oh, hello. Between Mountain Home and Sun Valley, there's not a whole lot. There's a mountain pass that just is a lot of windy backwoods mountain road, 2 lanes, not a whole lot to it. Up and down through the mountains, pine trees, no shoulder or anything like that. Yeah, really no UFOs in Idaho for me. The closest thing I ever had was this story. I was driving and I was right outside of Mountain Home, probably about 15 or 20 minutes, right into the thickest part of like pine trees and winding back roads. And as I come up over the ridge line, I see this glowing ball of white light about the size of a basketball, floating about 7 or 8 feet off the ground. And I was really like confused. I had no idea what the hell was going on, but I was convinced that I saw it. I wasn't, under any sort of influence. I was driving. And so I looked up and I see this like floating ball of light 7 or 8 feet off the road, just kind of hovering there. And I slow down because I'm about to drive through it, and I didn't want to drive through it because I had no fucking clue what it was. And so I stopped the car, which is on a highway where the speed limit is 55 miles an hour. I'm on a blind hairpin turn. And I was like, I can't stay here for very long, but I don't want to drive into that thing. I have no fucking clue what this thing is. And as I'm sitting there, it's just kind of floating, and then it starts to move towards the car. Like I look at it and I engage it, and I'm like, what do I do? I started to creep towards it, and it starts like moving towards me. And I panicked, like my chest got all tight because it was just this like bright ass white light that was moving towards the car, and I was freaking out and panicking. And as it got close to me, I was just like, I'm coming home, whoever made the universe. It was a Mylar birthday balloon, big Mylar birthday balloon. It had turned around and the reflective side was facing my car. It had lost enough helium to float about 8 feet off the ground and was catching my headlights and shining them back at me. But it had lost enough helium that it was doing this really cool figure 8 sway, and then the wind caught it just right at the right time and brought it directly at my car to make it look like it was lunging at me. And I was like, ah, like I threw my hands up and was like trying to put my car in reverse, and as it passed my car I was like, happy birthday. So that's the closest thing I have to like a UFO story in Idaho. I never really saw anything of interest in the sky. Saw a meteorite maybe, because it was big. Hit outside of Jerome once. At least you didn't live in the haunted house where the rumor is that there's a dead guy buried in the winter well. I absolutely lived in a scary ass rental house in Jerome, Idaho, where no fewer than 3 people, including Simon and another friend of mine named Cliff, saw some scary shit. Saw the same thing too on different nights without having talked to each other about it. That place was fucking terrifying, man. Simon and I went downstairs one time. Yeah, dude, we had a rental house in Jerome that we lived in. I don't know, we lived there for about 2 years. And I remember there was one time where Simon and I went downstairs and we were going through like old boxes and finding old toys and stuff like that. And the downstairs had like a complete floor plan to it. I'm gonna get hit. There's just, I didn't get hit. There's this entire like, you could rent the downstairs. I think at one point that had to have been the plan. There was a kitchenette, a bedroom, storage space, and a little living room downstairs. My sister took that room because she liked the autonomy of it, but then she never slept down there because it was terrifying. Which fucking is on her, because I was, a teenage boy. I would have loved the freedom to masturbate without fear of having anyone come downstairs to fuck with me. Instead, I got the room across the hallway from my parents, so I occasionally got to hear them do the grown-up while, also once in a blue moon trying to rub one out for myself. But hey, Leah got the entire downstairs apartment to herself at like 11, so cool. And then she never slept there. She slept in my bunk beds. Also cool. Thanks, Leah. Real sweet. At least she got to make a room pink. She made the entire room pink, so I couldn't like go downstairs. Well, I guess I could have, but I was like 13. I wasn't going downstairs to sleep in the pink room that was haunted. You know what I mean? So Simon and I are down there. We're breaking out all these old toys, and we looked through the storage area. There were 2 doors. One was through the kitchenette, and then the second door led into the living room space. And this is all in a basement, and so there are not a lot of windows to speak of. And so we looked through these 2 doors into the living room area where there's no lights are turned on. And so we look through and we see what looks like just a big black blob. It just looked like a blob moving around. And neither of us said anything. We looked up, we saw it, we turned around, we both ran out onto the front yard. It was daytime outside. We ran outside onto the front yard and then compared notes when we got there. And I was just like, did you see what I saw? And he was like, you say, what did you see? And I was like, I saw like a blob. And he's like, yeah, man, I saw a blob, like a something underneath a black cloth moving around. And it's like, yeah. He's like, all right, cool. I'm not staying the night at your house. And then he left. And then my friend Cliff, he and I were playing Super Mario Brothers 2, a new release on the Nintendo Entertainment System at the time. And he came over on a different night and was hanging out, and we played until like 3 in the morning. And then I fell asleep on my bunk bed, and this was in the upstairs room. This is in what ended up actually becoming my bedroom. But we were in the upstairs bedroom, which was my bedroom, and I went to sleep while he was playing Super Mario Brothers 2. And woke up and the lights were all still on, and I was just like, shit, man, if you were gonna go to bed, the least you could have done was like turned everything out. And so I rolled off the top bunk and saw him still sitting in the bed but like wide awake. This is I went to sleep around 3. I woke up and he was still awake at 7. The lights were on, the Nintendo was on, paused on a level, and he was laying in bed with his eyes wide open, and he was just like, "Do you own a dog?" And I said, "What do you mean, do I own a dog?" And he said, "Do you own a dog?" And I was like, "No, man. Fucking you would have seen a dog if I owned a dog. I do not own a dog." And he's like, "Well, what was in your living room last night?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. Couches?" He's like, I'm losing what you're trying to get at here. I'm still trying to figure out why you left all this shit on all night long. I'm gonna have burn-in on my monitor. And he said, "Dude, there was something out in your living room last night that looked like about the size of like a border collie or a black lab moving around with a black sleeping bag thrown over the top of it." He said it looked like something under a black sleeping bag was just moving around out in the living room. He said it freaked him out bad enough that he got up into the bed and pulled the covers up. This is a state champion wrestler, by the way. This guy grew up to become a state champion wrestler. We're not talking about someone the size of Grayson. We're talking about somebody who weight trained and was the starting middle linebacker for our football team. Yeah, this guy was a state champion wrestler, middle linebacker, who grew up, is still to this day, as far as I know, is ripped out of his fucking mind. This kid is, Cliff was strong. Cliff has always been strong. But yeah, he was so scared that he climbed into the bunk bed below me, pulled the covers up to his nose, and just laid there staring at the door the rest of the night in case something came through it. And he sat like that for 3 hours and just waited for me to wake up. That one always freaks me out because Cliff was not a wuss. Cliff was like that dude liked to roughhouse. You know what I mean? Like that dude liked to fight. So the fact that he opted to show fear instead of like running out and charging it was just like, oh wow, that's actually terrifying. Saw him about 4 months ago. He's still huge and as nice as ever. Yeah, I was gonna say, to say that Cliff liked to roughhouse and that he's a big meathead is not to undercut the fact that he's one of the nicest human beings on the planet. He was also tough as nails, is kind of the point that I'm trying to get across. Cliff was tough as nails and carved out of granite. But he asked me if I had a dog because he said he saw something that looked like about a black lab or a Labrador Retriever sized shape that was like something living that size that was underneath a black blanket moving around my living room. He had a broken arm that day too. Just total tangential side note. Cliff was so tough, like let's put it into context. Cliff was so tough that as he was at my house, he was there with a broken arm and didn't know it. He occasionally complained during that overnight that his arm was sore. His arm was sore because he had taken a line drive off of it in Little League, and it had hairline fractured like either his radius or his ulna. And he just was like, he didn't get it checked out for a couple days because it wasn't that big a deal. It was his take. Was like, it hurts, but it'll get better.